Hey friends, it's Kristen. Before we get to today's show, I just wanted to give you a little heads up that this episode contains sensitive material such as abuse and sexual abuse that may be upsetting to some. With that said, let's get on with today's show. Welcome to Conversations on the Rocks, the podcast where the drink is strong and the stories are stronger. I'm your host, Kristen Dokas, and this isn't your average chat fest. Here, real people spill the tea alongside their favorite drinks, from the hilarious to the heart-wrenching. Each episode, a wild card. You'll laugh, you may cry, but you'll definitely learn something new. So grab whatever wets your whistle and buckle up. It's time to dive into the raw, the real, and the ridiculously human. Let's get this chat party started. Hey everybody, it's Kristen, and you are listening to the newest episode of Conversations on the Rocks, the podcast that's as random as the tumbleweed that goes through my head on a hot summer day. And I have an author with me today. Ooh. It's my first author. And I am actually an author, kinda. I did a compilation, so I am published. I can walk around and say, I am a published author. But Lisa Gerardy, who is my guest today, is a bona fide author. Like, she's been writing her book now, Chasing Normal, it's been a hot minute, hasn't it? It's been about a year?
Well, it's been like a decade since I first started it. And then, it's a memoir, so I'd kind of be all gung-ho, and then I don't want to think about this, because my childhood wasn't like a Downy fabric softener commercial or anything. It was, different. So
it's hard.
Yeah.
I think we were chatting earlier today, and I told you I've read half of it already, which I still owe you a review for Amazon so I can be a published author again.
Yes.
But it's an intense topic. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
I mean, sure. I don't know.
I mean, granted, it's in the book, but not,
Right, it's in the book. I was, so it's always been my normal. So I can talk about this very easily. And other people are like, I almost titled the memoir Making People Cringe because, I'll be in a situation like a book club and people are like, oh, I remember when my grandma made cookies. And I'm there like, I remember when I went to my grandma to get help because my step uncle was molesting me and she told me we don't talk about that, and everybody's like, and to me, it's like, it is what it is. But people hear that and they're like, oh, wow.
Well, it's a very... It's a hard topic that is very real, but people don't want to talk about it because it makes them uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. And it is a conversation that needs to happen a little bit more often because you and I are we're both Gen Xers, so we're in the same, I don't call it age anymore. We're at the same game level. And you're right. Back then, thank God nothing like that ever happened to me.
Good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, exactly. But, that was the general, we don't talk about that.
Definitely.
And it still happens. These situations still happen. However, I'm hoping that as a society, we take it a lot more seriously now, whether it's, assault of a child or assault in general. It's, not so much of it's his word, their word against your word, because there's a lot of that. It's the thing the big viral thing a couple of months ago, remember, with the bear, or just last month?
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
Would you rather be alone with a man or a bear? And all these women were listing off the things that they'd rather be alone with a bear.
Right. Yeah.
That's sad that we're still in that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
As a society. So what made you, you said you've been doing it for about 10 years. You've lived with it your entire life. Mm-hmm. So over 50 years. And what made you finally go, I'm putting this down on paper. I am going to publish this. I am going to put out my memoir.
A couple of things. Getting involved with the Nonfiction Authors Association was very motivating. And I forget the name of the movie, but I watched a movie on TV where she was writing about being abused, and she was always holding off on it. And then someone told her, write like no one is going to read it. And so then I started doing that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name. Mm-mm. It was that little piece that you just said right there.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like no one's going to read it. So, and that was always my, fear. And then, to be honest, my mother died in 2019, and I felt more liberated to write because she is, I don't know what planet she lived on during those years, but it certainly wasn't the same one I'm on, because her recollection is very different.
How was your relationship with your mom as an adult?
It had stages, so I had to kind of divide her into two people, then mom and now mom. She got better as I got older, and my stepdad, even though he was a bigot and whatever, was like the best man she brought into our life. And he told her, stop hitting her, go easy on her. She's a good kid. So, sorry, my younger years, like 20s, I was okay with her. She'd still give me money, buy me things for my apartment. But as I got older and as my son got older, I got angrier because I love my son so much. I couldn't understand how she did not do anything when I told her about sexual abuse. She did nothing. And how she could talk the way she talked to me and hit me and stuff, so it got worse. And then I felt bad for her because as she got older, my brother had he was off the face of the earth. We didn't know where he was. So I was all she had. So, my husband used to say, I don't understand why you still talk to her. And the thing was guilt, I guess. I'm all she has. We don't have a very big family.
That says a lot about you. That says a lot. Your mom, she was single, right? Mm-hmm. She was a single working mom for a lot of years. When was it that your stepdad came into the picture?
She met him when I was 13, when I was in 8th grade. Mm-hmm.
So as a single working mother, do you feel or do you think that she poo-pooed it because she was having to rely on the perpetrators?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And if she were to, and I'm not justifying it, please don't take that at all. And if she were to say something, then I'm going to be kind of crass here, then the gravy train, the gravy train that she had would be gone. Or it could turn around and then whatever abuse was on her. And, which it's still just a shitty thing to do because there's only 5 people in the world that I would go to jail for, and 3 of those are my children. And it is, and, granted, some days I feel like I need to go to jail because of them, but,
yeah.
That is, as a mother, and this, you're a mom yourself. I mean, did you ever ask her why?
No, I never really talked much about it as an adult. There was one time I saw her have guilt or feelings about it. In my early 20s is when my GI system started really bugging me, and I prepped, and I was supposed to have a lower GI, which is a barium enema. Fun time.
This town needs an enema.
Yeah.
That's my favorite line from Batman.
So she took me to the hospital to have this test, only they do not, at least 20 years ago, this was 30 years ago. I'm lying to myself about my age. They did not knock me out or anything. And they did not even get the thing there. And I was hyperventilating, and I jumped off the gurney or whatever. It's not a gurney, whatever the bench is they put you on. And I went back to where my mom was waiting, and I was hyperventilating and crying. And she got mad at, not herself really, but she was effing Norman. My step uncle was Norman,
right,
which is a terrible name. Sorry to all the Normans out there, but that name just
Norm.
It's a terrible name. Psycho is extra scary for me. So she did show some feelings about it, but she never really, I don't know. I don't know if she had the ability to be a better thinker and communicator. I don't know.
I have to believe that in some way that the guilt she felt had to carry over. I just have to, in my mom heart, I have to, she knew what it was, that it wasn't right. So I have to hope and believe that she didn't talk about it. She avoided it. But at the same time, she maybe internally acknowledged the fact that what she did was really awful, or didn't prevent. What was the most challenging part, do you think, about writing about this?
Sharing, it's weird, but like you said, we're Gen X. So my arc, I guess, is, the abuse happened, and then I had horrible relationships, and then I found Chris. So the horrible relationships, I internally slut shamed myself. So I was like, wow, I was a big old slut. So that was tough. It was tough to be honest. And I'm not even including everything. Like, this is my best version of honest about my dating life. And I don't have shame over being sexually abused because I didn't do that.
Right.
That wasn't my fault. But then the dating
you weren't wearing that little princess dress to
I wasn't. I never understood why people didn't believe me or do anything, because this was in the 70s, right? It's not like we had the internet. How do I know what male genitalia looks like? I didn't have access to anything. So why wouldn't you believe a little kid?
Because they didn't want to.
They didn't want to have to do anything about it.
That's right. That ish is going to get ugly. And, unfortunately, I've known women and young ladies who've dealt with sexual assault older. And even in the 21st century, there's still that, what were you doing? What were you wearing? Were you drinking? I'm like, I remember telling my girls, like, I don't care if you are standing buck ass naked,
right,
holding a 12-pack of beer, and no is no, and that is it. And I will come after somebody if that is the case. But a lot of times too, it doesn't. These guys get away with it, or these people get away with it because our judicial system is set up so that the victim is victimized twice. Right?
I have an example of that.
Please.
So when I lived in Ohio, I was on a grand jury, which was interesting. I'm a nosy person. I actually like jury duty. But they saved the sexual assaults for after lunch, so it was always, troubling. And this young woman came in, an acquaintance had raped her, had kidnapped her and raped her, actually, had kept her against her will. And usually the perpetrator doesn't come in to give testimony, but he did. And he was just all handsome and denying everything and like, oh, it was consensual, because DNA evidence doesn't nail them. They can just say it was consensual.
Right.
So what really angered me about the situation is the three women sitting across the table from me on the jury who were like, well, you said she was a dancer? Yeah. Because she was a dancer, she deserved to be kidnapped and taken. Like, he offered her a ride home, and he did not let her get out of the car, took her to his house, tied her up, the whole 9 yards. And no, but she's a dancer.
Right. So that makes it okay.
Yeah. I don't know what happened with that case, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was found not guilty.
Probably because she was a dancer. Well, that's another thing. This is totally off subject, but kind of on topic, which is the whole why sex workers, the whole sex work thing just needs to be legalized. Yeah. I mean, to take away, if we can start getting rid of the stigma and the connotation behind some of these things, these people, I won't just say young ladies or girls or whatever, they're just trying to make a living. They should be safe. They should be safe, but that's the reason why a lot of them, unfortunately, then run down the addict path that goes with it. What about your son, and what about Chris? Talk a little bit about how, because again, very sensitive topic, right? Not only is it a sensitive topic, but now it's my mom and my wife having to go through that. How did that work? Not pan out, but well, how was that?
Since that happened to me, and I've always been pretty open with my son at whatever age, like whatever level he could handle, I have asked him his entire life if anybody has touched him inappropriately. He's 27. I still do, because he once told his friend, like, gosh, if something happened to me, I wouldn't tell my mom because she'd be in jail. So I asked him all the time, now, are you sure? Are you just not telling me because I'll go kill him? Or, So he's known his whole life. I did send them the first draft of my book. And Chris, he doesn't want to read it because of the dating stuff. And there's a, boyfriend in college that was abusive to me, but we had wonderful sex. So, that's kind of, he doesn't want to hear it, I guess. And my son started reading it, and he texted me, he said, Mom, I'm sure this is going to be a page turner, but you're my mom. So it's hard for them to read.
But how were they through the process? I'm sure they were supportive, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Chris.
And were you able to work through some of those things with them? I mean, you're a very open and honest person. I can't see ever that you would have not been open and honest and transparent with them about the situation. So really, it's no surprise except for the fact that you're just writing a 250-page, 300-page book.
Right. Yeah, no, I've always been open with them, and medical things, like Chris has seen me have a meltdown in the gynecologist's office because she wanted to do a uterine biopsy, and they attempted that on me before, and I said, no, you have to knock me out. Anything deep orifice like that, I have to be unconscious, because it's weird. There's a book, I think The Body Remembers or something like that. I have it over there, but even though I go into these situations knowing that they are not there to hurt me, my body just goes nuts if we're doing anything rectal or beyond the cervix,
It's almost like muscle memory.
Yeah. So he's seen me do that. And then they had to schedule a DNC because I was like, no, I need to. You are not doing that.
We've known each other for a long time. We kind of grew up in the blogging world together, and your sense of humor has always been a key piece of, you're funny. You're funny as shit.
Shit can be unfunny too, though.
It sure can, but yours is funny. It is very true that, humor sometimes hides our trauma, right? That's how we deal with things. Do you think, and I'm a pretty punny and, witty kind of person too. I don't take a lot of things very seriously. And I know sometimes that's, it's easier to deal with these things with humor. Do you think let me ask you this way. Were you the little comic when you were young?
Oh yeah.
So do you think it's always though been kind of a way to, not have to deal with the demons face on? It's easier to deal with them.
Definitely. When I first realized I was funny was 8th grade. I had moved to a new school before my mom met John. And my old school was very tough, like hood school, but the boundaries changed. So I got to go to this new school, and it's all these people I don't know. And I just started cracking jokes. And then all of a sudden I, was in with the preps. And so I thought, wow, that's, it's good that I'm funny. And then the first time John met me, he had us we lived in the same apartment building as he did. And he had us to his apartment for dinner. And I was just, my mom had dated Rod for 7 years, who, as she got older, didn't exist. She's like, I never dated when Lisa was little. I'm like, okay. And he was horrible. So I'm like, oh, here we go again. Janet's picked out another man. Let me, get rid of him. And I was just tearing into him because I can really hurt people with my words. It's both a good thing and a bad thing sometimes.
I understand that. Believe me.
And he laughed and laughed, and he goes, he was much older than my mom. He's like, you got the gift of gab, kid. He says, you remind me of Joan Rivers. And I was like, who's Joan Rivers? You don't know. He's Italian too. You don't know who Joan Rivers is? And he got me the album for Christmas, one of her album. Young People, the vinyl before. Yeah. So yeah, he got me into basically, and then I started doing comedy, like 8 years later, I would say.
When did you finally break out?
Break out?
Like when did you break out from your mom? How old were you?
Oh,
like when did you leave to go out on your own? Did you go to college?
I did. So my mom made me, I had the boyfriend that nobody liked. I didn't want to go away to college. I'm not a partier. I like to read, but I got into Florida State, and she made me go. She's like, no, you're going. I'm like, but I could go to community college and it's right here. And they're like, no. And plus my stepdad was so much older. He'd raised his kid, so he wanted me out. So 17, I drove 9 hours to Florida State in my Chevy Chevette. But then I really hated it. So the next year I moved back in with them and went to school locally. But then when I was 22, my stepdad was like he's like taking me to look at apartments that are in terrible places, but that I could afford. So I moved in with the man who's now my ex-husband because they wanted me out, and, he had room. So I just moved in with him. And I tell my son now, you wouldn't be here if my parents were nicer.
Because he's from your first marriage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But he gets along with Chris better, I would say. But
isn't it kind of interesting, though, had you not had a different approach or just a different mindset, having lived through that, how easy it would have been for you to fall into the same trap that your mom did?
I did repeat some of her behavior. I mean, I have a divorce. I did hit Sergio when he was younger. I think when he was about 8 is when I met Chris, and I was just like, I need to learn how to be a parent. I can't hit him. That's just not helpful. And he's so smart, even as a little kid, that helped me to be able to talk to him instead of lose my shit.
Right.
So I did have a therapist. When I was going through my divorce, I went to a therapist. And like I said, I never thought really much about how old I was when I was abused. I was 2. And she said, that's profound abuse. How are you not on a corner right now? And I just said, because I don't want to be. I don't know.
It's a good testament to your strong will, because I can totally, when I went through my divorce, I did a lot of self-work, right? Because you have to. And I didn't necessarily want to go to a therapist. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to read. And boy, did I learn a lot about myself and my behaviors. Like, I was, we were both latchkey kids, but I was the latchkey kid, and, I couldn't understand why I kept chasing after emotionally unavailable people, and and that I was an emotionally unavailable person. But why am I an emotionally unavailable person? Because I got no emotion at home, kind of thing. And it's like, once you start going through this and then you get to the point that until you work on yourself, you're going to keep chasing that. You're going to keep chasing, whether it's mommy issues or daddy issues. You're going to keep trying to, for me, it was, my stepdad, I was never good enough for him. And if I was, he didn't let me know. It was always, you could do this better, you could do that better. So I was always, in my entire life, and, in my dating life, in my marriage life, in my post-marriage life, I was always trying to prove that I was worthy. And because I was trying to prove it to the wrong people. So, we're destined to repeat these patterns until we finally go, okay, until we can name it, right? Once you can name it, then you're like, oh, okay. All right, now let's get our ish together and let's start from here.
Right.
I came into that naming thing a couple of years ago. What year is this? This is 2024. So my youngest moved out of the house, the beginning of empty nesting. And I didn't put a name to it, but I was like, a couple of months later, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm just like, meh. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And then finally clicked on me that I was depressed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That huge piece of my life of being an active mother, an active parent was done. And once I was able to label it, then I was able to fix it.
Yeah. No, that does help. With relationships, a therapist I saw, before I even married my ex-husband, which I shouldn't have, but said that I create chaos. Because if you're used to chaos, if you grow up with chaos, you recreate it. So in relationships, I was either the abused or the abuser, not physical. I've never physically abused a man, but just, cheated, left, whatever, just hurt them somehow.
Right.
So I think when I met Chris, a couple of things had happened. I had to talk to myself in my head, and I said, you do not have to date men who need to be fixed. And you can just date someone who's nice to you. Like you can allow that to happen, so, and you don't have to try to destroy it. Cause I remember one time when we were engaged, like being real mean to him, and he was just, and then I caught myself. I'm like, what am I doing?
I've had to have the conversation several times with people, and I did the same thing until I did the work on myself, which is the whole spark, the butterflies.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's not good. Society has lied to us and told us that if you don't feel sparks and butterflies, it's not the right person. And I'm like, oh no, that's your body telling you run. That's your fight or flight coming in. And that's that adrenaline. And safe feels boring because you don't feel that. No, for sure. For sure. The relationship I had in high school, my senior year, wasted my whole senior year on this guy, was like that, butterflies and excitement. And I lost a bunch of weight because I wasn't eating. And, it was, And it was your adrenaline.
Yeah.
How's the process? We're going to segue a little bit because we're probably got about another 10 minutes left. But let's talk about the process, the fun part of writing a book. So, I've never actually written my own book. I had, when I contributed, it was somebody else taking care of it. What happens now? Okay, so the book comes out in November after the election. She made sure to point out after the election.
With nothing to do with fighting.
So the book, is it done? Has it gone to print yet? I know you had mentioned to me that you had some more editing to do.
I'm doing one more revision because I sent it a couple months ago to a developmental editor, and she, really said, no, you need to do a lot here. so I'm doing what she said, and it'll probably be completed by September 15th. And then that will give me a couple months to do things like this and, all those other things, promote, I guess. I'm not good at that, but I have to try. No, it's been fun.
And then the book goes on sale. It's not like they used to make it seem in the movies and TV shows. You're not going on a 50 city tour. No. I very much want Jenna Bush Hagar to interview me on the Today Show, but I don't think I just can call her and say, hey, why not?
Bestie, I'm stopping in.
Hey,
I might send her a book. I don't know.
Happen to be in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, you should. And then are you going to do anything else? Is this your one and done? Do you think this will motivate you to do other published pieces?
Oh, I am working on a journal with prompts, and it's called Say Nope to Normal. So I am going to get that out sometime after the book. I want to speak more because I know, this kind of thing happens to a lot of people out there. So I would like to go speak. I find it easy to speak about my abuse. I tend, like I said, I tend to make other people uncomfortable when I talk about it, but I can talk about it. I don't know. I see myself trying to help younger women and girls more to get through that, to move on.
And I think it will. Yeah, and I think it will. I mean, it kind of goes back to, it's a catastrophic thing to have happen, right? Mm-hmm. And it can very easily define the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And there has to be a choice made, because if you don't make a choice, and I'm not saying get over it, right? Because do you ever really get over it? No. However, you can make the choice to whether or not how much it's going to define you in your life and your future. It's something I'd never wish on anyone, but how you choose to move on with your life says a lot about you and a lot about the family and friends that surround you and support you through this. Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad I've known you. So, the name of the book is Chasing Normal. Mm-hmm. just as we close out, in your 8-year-old, 9-year-old self, what was normal to you?
I had friends who, so Jenny was my best friend in 8th grade. Her mom stayed home and she was nice. She didn't scream at us or anything. Jenny was in Girl Scouts and she took dance classes, and her mom cooked. Like we were big on TV dinners and drive-through, and her dad did not sexually abuse her. So it was just like that was normal. And so in high school and later, when I dated people that I was not compatible with, part of it was, his family is normal. And then I could be in that family,
And now, when did your definition of normal change? And then what does normal look like to you now?
Oh, I'm never going to be normal because I say whatever comes to my mind. I'm like Sophia on the Golden Girls. That's who I identify with. Yeah, normal is anything.
But that is your normal.
Yeah, my normal is that I'm a little nutty. Is what, and I didn't realize. I mean, I think it took me a long time. Is when I was younger, I thought, I was sexually abused, but I'm fine. No, I wasn't fine.
Just burying it.
Yeah.
It's just like the gift that keeps on giving until you unwrap it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thought. I need that printed.
Lisa, thank you so much for taking time to tell your story. Can't wait. I'm going to finish the book and I'm going to get you your quote, your review. I promise, because I know it's important. And see, that's why I have to have a deadline. Because if you don't give me a deadline, I'll be like,
I know.
And now I know my deadline's coming because you said I need to have it by September. And I'm like, okay, I got it.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to put something inside the book too, have a page of quotes. So.
Oh, nice.
Do that. Yeah.
Very nice. And I like the journal. Journaling is good, and it helps us. Writing things down helps us process a lot of just getting it out. Sometimes just putting it on paper is the first step to really getting things out. The catharticism of it is really good. So, well, the best of luck to you. I hope it lands on the New York Times bestseller list, but more importantly, I just hope you have fun with it and that it is everything that you want it to be. So thanks again. Everybody, thank you. This has been an insightful and, different conversation, which I love. I love me some good conversations. I hope everyone is well. And until the next time we speak again or listen again, may the road before you always be free of snow. How's that one for this week? All right, everybody. Talk to you later. As the saying goes, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And that's a wrap for this week's episode. A big thanks to my guests for sharing their story and to you for listening. Don't forget to share the show with your friends and spread the words. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, the link is in the show notes. Till next time, cheers.